Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Pop Culture Therapy. I'm Advent Nebula.
And I'm Cruellica Kain. Still amazed that I have my co-host.
Yeah.
I
know.
You've been busy.
I'm also on night crew now, so...
Yeah, so we are like two ships passing in the wind. We have to wait for a day where you are not working the next day because he goes to bed at like
5 o'clock in the evening.
I was gonna say he goes to bed at like 5, so you can wake up at what, like
midnight?
Yeah, and I'm like, I finish my work day outside of this because I wish this was my full-time job, but that may not happen. It's just fine. Maybe I'll go part-time someday. But anyways, I work from 6 a.m. to essentially 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday.
I'm going in at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning.
So, yeah. Ships passing in the wind. So, we're trying to get on like an even keel, so you'll see more of, well, you'll hear more of both of us, but we are trying to look at doing a Twitch stream so we can share this on both Twitch and via YouTube as audio, or maybe even video. Maybe we'll, because if we do Twitch, because we don't have VTube things, and I don't...
You'd be literally seeing my graying beard, but at least I'll be looking nice.
Exactly, and I will actually dress not like a hobo. That's the one benefit I will have to say of working from home, is I don't have to wear real people clothes. I can wear pajama pants or leggings and
all you have to do is just have a nice shirt on top if there's a video conference.
Exactly. Like right now I have a JoJo shirt that's seen better days, but I still stand Jotaro. But with that said, we should actually get to the point of this podcast, so you're not like, are they going to meander again?
But some people would like our meandering. But anyway, we're asking a question today. Is rock dead, or is it just evolving? Which has been a question we've been asking since pretty much the era of null metal, when it kind of died.
Yeah, and if you don't know what null metal is, or new metal, or whatever it's typically called, think of Limp Bizkit.
Think of Disturbed. Think of... Korn would probably be the prime example of it, because they were probably the biggest band of the day.
Exactly.
Slipknot.
Which, Slipknot's still going strong, but that's where we're coming to the question of, is rock the same as it was before? Rock throughout the ages, admittedly, if we go way back in time to around the 40s, rock is actually an offshoot of R&B.
And Kentucky Bluegrass is are the two combining together to become one.
And in truth, rock was actually dominated in the 30s and 40s, actually by black individuals.
And it was offshoot of, basically where rock offshooted, it was from jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended up becoming its own little thing. It's really... when Jerry Lee Lewis
and Elvis Presley
came into the picture, when rock started to be associated with white music. But
Absolutely.
It was controversial at the time because it was white men playing what was considered Negro music. Sorry for the slang, but
that's what the
you had to usually, you have to call it what it was back in the 40s and 50s and how they referred to the music.
And it was a very difficult time. And so, like, one of my favorite artists of all time, still to this day, is B.B. King. B.B. King is an R&B musician. If you've not heard him, oh my God, you really need to really look up the history.
And Elvis's influence over in Europe led to the formation of the Beatles.
Absolutely. And so that's why Elvis Presley has always been considered the king of rock. And I think it's important to note that, yes, for the modern definition of rock, he is absolutely 100% the case. But we've had so many people prior to him. We've had so many people after him. Some other great rock bands that you may not think of as rock are like Earth, Wind, and Fire, Santana.
There's so much you can think of, especially because rock ended up having so many subgenres branch out of it. Then when you get into the early British metal with Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, King Crimson, and then here in America you had Yes, and you had Rush coming together.
Then you had Buffalo Springfield. You had the
Who would be part of the British
invasion. So that's exactly it. In the 60s, we had what was called the British invasion, which started with the Beatles. Then you had the Monkees.
Yeah, Monkees for a U.S. a British hybrid with them.
Yeah, because Davy Jones, ironically, David Bowie's actual name is Davy Jones, but he had to go by David Bowie because Davy Jones was already part of the Monkees and a known person.
They didn't want any confusion when David Bowie was coming out, and then Queen.
Absolutely. So you had, and then you also had another offshoot that happened because country music offshooted from bluegrass.
Yep, and then you had what is called the Southern Rock.
Like Lynyrd Skynyrd.
CCR.
Oh, God. If you don't know who CCR is, Clearwater Revival.
And a lot of that Southern rock came out of the tensions of the Vietnam War.
Exactly. And out of rock, we then got disco. And disco is kind of a hybrid of a lot of the dance music that was happening in the black culture. Sadly, I hate to say this, it's going to sound terrible, but a lot of music is really taken from, sadly, black inspirations. And that's why
I consider hip-hop taking rock and roll back.
Exactly. And that's why, even though we're white, or predominantly white, you have Native American roots, I have roots in the, not Native American, but in the aspect of not fully white elements in Poland.
Not only am I half Native American, I have the Roma blood in me too.
Exactly. And I have a lot of the Polish and Ukrainian roots, and they were very diverse. I'll just put it that way. And so, but because we identify as white, I always make sure to, if I have white privilege, which sadly I do, even though I'm white trash, I try to use it to make sure people know the roots of where music came from. Rock is not white. That's why when people started talking about Hootie and the Blowfish being inappropriate because the main Hootie was black, I'm like, what does that matter?
Little Richard was one of the biggest musicians of rock and roll.
Absolutely. And Fats Domino.
Yeah.
And so there's...
And here's one a lot of people probably don't even know. Chubby Checkers.
Oh, I love Chubby Checkers. But so there's a lot of... All of our music admittedly is taken from...
Unless you're country and western, which is probably the true only white person music there is.
With the bluegrass, yes.
Yeah.
Because bluegrass, sadly, was banjo away.
Bluegrass originated out of the deep Appalachians.
Yes. So, and if you think about it, white people have always had music. It's not to say that white people have stolen all music, because that is unfair. Beethoven, Bach,
Classical music is the root of a lot of the modern music.
But a lot of the music that we Americans hold dear came, admittedly, from
black culture
during the slavery period. And I'm not going to go into a whole thesis on that, because
there's plenty you can read. There are so many you can read on that.
I was going to say, yeah, there's a lot of smarter people than us who have wrote a lot of great dissertations, and music has evolved. And because music has evolved, it's nice to know the history, but after the British invasion, which is really what made rock huge, like you said, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, then we get into the 80s.
Hair metal.
We have two divergences. We have the disco
The disco died in 1979.
Yes, but truthfully, it evolved into the rock that we had from the 90s, where we had synthwave, synth metal, synth pop, and then we had hair metal. And then in the 90s...
The grunge invasion of Seattle.
Oh my god, grunge. Well, we also had, in the mid-90s, we had a new rock offshoot that really originated in England, but became popular here. Punk.
Yep, you can thank punk. And then you also had the second British invasion when Oasis came around.
Oh my god, that family needs some therapy. But Oasis, I can't believe they're already the 25th anniversary. No, 35th anniversary.
35th anniversary. Nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you know the Gallagher brothers will not show up.
Because they won't show up because the other one will show up. The Gallagher brothers have... It's something that's been known since they created their band. I don't know how they became as good as they did.
And how two twin brothers can hate each other's guts so much.
Absolutely. And after we had that, in the early aughts...
Yeah, you had the no metal, and you had alternative rock blow up.
Alternative rock, I think of alternative rock like Silverfish and... Or no, Silverchair.
Silverchair. Incubus, which is still...
Incubus, Beck.
Red Hot Chili Peppers, even though they started in the late 80s, they did not really hit their big hits until 99 and 2001.
Maroon 5, ironically, was alternative.
Goo Goo Dolls, ironically, were alternative, not pop.
And also, so was Panic at the Disco. And, well, Nickelback actually was heavy metal.
With their first two albums.
Oh my god. They were like, in it to win it.
And then they went pop rock.
Oh, yeah, we won't go there. And then, after the early 2000s, once we get to 2010, rock definitely takes more of a pop turn.
It very became poppy, and then what stayed heavy either went underground or just the bands like that had been around for decades were getting airplay.
And when the one thing we haven't talked about, and this is where we're alluding to, is heavy metal, death metal, black metal, power metal, like Pantera. Oh my god, there's
Pantera's still considered thrash.
Which makes me laugh. But yeah, thrash metal is another one. There's so many versions of it. And that is the music that has been weaving into the underground because...
the established acts come out and have stayed there, like Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, bands that have established themselves. Slayer's retired, but Megadeth and Metallica are still putting out music.
Oh, absolutely. And so when you get into popular bands for today,
Falling in Reverse has been around for 15 years, and they've only started to become popular.
Well, the ones that have been true to themselves since they started with their alternative rock music, rock metal, is like you said, RHCP, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters, Pearl Jam, even though Pearl Jam is
terrible.
Linkin Park. Yeah. Linkin Park did a blend, though, that helped them get on the charts popular by adding in the hip-hop elements. Some of the bands that really frustrate me that have literally changed themselves are Maroon 5 and Coldplay. They have decided to go more of the pop. Like, truthfully, for Maroon 5, what do you think is their most popular song of all time?
I can think of it. I just don't want to. I just have blocked the name of the song because I hate that song so much.
Move Like Jagger.
Yeah.
Or Groove Like Jagger, or Dance Like Jagger, whatever it is. It has Mick Jagger's name in it. That is their most popular song. However, I like all of their early albums prior to them going pop. Like Songs About Jane.
Yeah. There's a reason why their Super Bowl halftime show is considered one of the worst. They only played their pop hits.
Then we have Fallout Boy, and My Chemical Romance, Paramore.
Emo rock, which is actually making a comeback somehow.
And then you have a lot of these new bands that are coming up. Like you have bands that one wouldn't consider as rock. 21 Pilots.
Which I consider them rock with a lot of their more modern stuff they've been putting out.
Yes, but...
They were more of a rap rock band in the early days.
And then Kings of Leon. Yeah.
Muse.
And then we have a Mumford & Sons.
Cage the Elephant.
Mm-hmm. These are who our modern rock bands are. And so the question is, has rock died? Or are we seeing the next evolution and we're taking on the stance our parents took?
We kind of might be, but then we're looking at a lot of the bands that are starting to get airplay now have been around for years, and you're just starting to hear them get like Avatar. They've been around for almost 15 years.
Well, and then like
All Time Low, pop punk that just now broke out.
Avenged Sevenfold.
They didn't break out until their third album, and they had been around for 10 years at that point.
Well,
when they were teenagers.
That's what makes no sense to me. And, okay, it makes no sense to me as having been a fan of these musicians for a long time. And if you think about it, even Ed Sheeran is considered rock. And there's nothing wrong with that because I actually really do like Ed Sheeran's music.
I love how him and Danny Filth hang out all the time.
Oh, God, yeah. His friends with... He has some amazing friends that when you look at Ed Sheeran, even though most people see this, like, nice little boy, but then if you take his, sleeveless shirt, he is tatted to hell.
And then you see him hanging out with the guitarist of Def Leppard and then Danny Filth of Cradle of Filth are his two best friends that he hangs out with and goes to the pub with regularly.
Absolutely, which I love it. And then you have like a band like Arctic Monkeys.
That's a bizarre-ass band. And a band from Scotland, no less.
And then you have a band that's taking a different perspective with rock. Greta Van Fleet.
Which is they denied it and then came clean that, no, we're very much heavily inspired by Led Zeppelin.
Well, that was very apparent from every time I've listened to their music.
And just to think, a few guys in their mid-20s from Detroit having such a respect for older rock.
Well, and truthfully, the other fascinating thing that I've seen is this is the next evolution of rock, where pop music is veering into that rock influence. Let's take, for example, Olivia Rodrigo. She has a song called Brutal. If you've ever heard that song, you would think of a hard rock hit.
Yeah.
Then you have Dove Cameron. When I listen to her songs, I get that classic rock feel to it. And she is technically pop. A lot of Pink's new music, when she works with Fun, is very rock oriented.
Yeah.
So
Avril Lavigne went back to being from that poppy punk rock to going full rock nowadays.
And it's fascinating. And so the reason, like, originally I wanted to talk about rock being dead. And you brought up a lot of great points that rock isn't dead.
It's going underground with these bands, and then all of a sudden, once the streaming and their popularity on YouTube hits, all of a sudden you start seeing them get airplay. And I think the best example of this is Ghost.
Oh, God. Ghost is everywhere.
Yeah, they did not hit out until they had 3 albums out, had been around for a good, and this is just, it's Tobias Forge is the guy who plays our satanic, lovely priest, Papa, but he has a rotating cast of bandmates that he has out for every album.
Very similar to Gwar.
Yeah, but what he does is he puts on very Alice Cooper-like live shows, and they are amazing.
Well, and I think the one challenge of why there are a lot of people who do think at times rock is dead is because of the fact that we don't have things like Ozfest anymore, or really like a true Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza has evolved significantly.
It's Coachella now that's the big event.
Absolutely.
And I like to call Coachella, it's where trust fund managers go for the weekend to enjoy a rock and roll show.
I was going to say, yeah, I can't afford Coachella. And I make pretty damn good money, and I can't afford Coachella. But I feel as though, and this is where my Rock is Dead conspiracy theory glasses came on, is because of the fact that I feel like I'm turning into my parents with this. So, up until about 94, my music history was primarily 50s, 60s, 70s, like Little Richard, Chubby Checker, Fats Domino, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Queen, Beatles. I could name a whole bunch of underground bands at the same time, like Guess Who and...
The Band.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, I love The Band. But all of these musical acts, that's all I listened to. Like, when the song OPP came out, and it's kind of funny because I didn't know as a kid, so I had no context, and now people watching this probably have no idea the song, but I did not relate to my peers because all I listened to was rock music. And like New Kids on the Block, I did not get that craze by any means. And so...
We didn't like Timberlake when he was part of Insane.
But now that he's alone, it's like, God,
Timberlake, you're a genius when it comes to your music.
Absolutely. And another rock star that we actually forgot about, even though he's technically called the King of Pop, Michael Jackson with the Jackson 5.
And even before he went full on pop, his early pre-Thriller, it was more rock. It was Thriller that really brought the pop side out.
Absolutely. And so rock music truthfully has evolved. And I will say
it's going to keep evolving like it always does.
And I will say at times it does make me sad that the rock music that I've enjoyed, the stylings of rock music that I've enjoyed, even in my adulthood, listening to a lot of, because I actually really enjoy death metal, that it has evolved and it has changed.
And as much as you and I don't care for his music, we understand Post Malone's a genius, but really his style of rock is where rock and roll is going to go.
Absolutely. No, and I've had to learn to appreciate new rock music because our pop stars now are taking on very rock elements. And in a way, if you are a soul rock fan, you have to be happy about it because even if you think about it with hip hop, you have two very different types of hip hop going on right now. You have hip hop with the very rock elements like Tech 9. And then you have classic hip hop still coming out from Snoop, Kendrick Lamar.
And then you have that, and you're not even thinking about it, but you have that third style of hip hop, which I like to call the TikTok hip hop, which is kind of the screamo hip hop.
I try to ignore that type of hip hop.
We both do, but it's out there, and it's what the popular type of hip hop now.
And for me, hip hop, even though I didn't listen to it as much as a kid until, like I said, 94, I became a very big connoisseur of hip hop because
Dre's a genius.
I was going to say, Dre is who I really started with. Dre, Snoop Dogg, then Eminem when he came around, and I love Kendrick Lamar. He can spit verses like an expert.
Kendrick Lamar, there's a reason why he's called a genius.
Absolutely. And admittedly, Kanye West, before he went insane, is an incredible lyricist.
A gold digger.
Oh, God, Gold Digger, so many of his songs. I actually really do, and it hurts me to say this, enjoy him more than I enjoy Jay-Z. Because I personally think Jay-Z is so much overhyped.
And Jay-Z at this point is just Beyonce's manager and husband.
I was going to say. But, so rock is evolving. And what I would say for any rock fan,
if you're a fan of black metal, enjoy this, because black metal's gonna be the next metal that goes mainstream.
I see that happening. And if you don't enjoy the current metal landscape, that is absolutely fine. That's the one thing I like about Amazon Music, Apple Music, YouTube Music. If you have those subscriptions, you can get your entire catalog filled, like I do, with my 50s through early 2000s rock, and then a lot of sprinklings of Ghost, Cam FDM, and so many other bands in there.
Heck, I enjoyed what Poppy did from going from a little pop princess into the modern null metal queen.
Poppy is insane, but that's what you have to appreciate about music, is music has evolved over the decades, and I don't think it will stop. And the one nice thing you have to say about music is those trends that are terrible, like disco and straight up dubstep.
Yeah, dubstep's evolved into the rock and roll thanks to Post Malone.
I was gonna say, the actual meaning of dubstep is pretty much gone, and I will say, was very thankful for that, because when Korn tried their hand at it and they doubled down, they woke up and went back to the music they were good at.
Yeah, but that's also when Head returned to the band.
Yes, because Head is a genius.
And Head ended up rejecting God after finding God for 15 years.
That's a whole nother video. We could talk about the hypocrisy of musicians and how crazy they get, because
Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit?
Oh my God. I am Rod Stewart, and having to get, supposedly, it's a rumor, they had to get his stomach pumped from all the cum.
And let's not forget any Rammstein show.
Yeah, Rammstein is not for children. That's why their tickets are so expensive, because they want to make sure that you are truly committed to the show you're going to see.
Yeah.
But with that said, like our last one where we talked about censorship and localization, this is another one where I personally could talk about music for hours.
Both of us have such similar tastes in music, we could go on.
Well, I also was a band geek in high school. You weren't a band geek because you had to play football and be part of the cool kids.
I was also a basketball manager too.
I was a band geek, but then again, my band, when we weren't playing instruments, were gambling and getting high. So I don't know what that says. But if you ever see the movie American Pie, and I can't remember her character, but the one from band camp, and she's like, that one time at band camp, I lived those stories. I know how crazy band camp students are. We're worse than your football players and cheerleaders. But with that said, we're going to have more fun for you, so keep on coming back, and bye!